Welcome friends to my YouTube channel. My name is Garrett and here we do painting projects. So if you're new, consider subscribing. Today we're going to be painting skin tones. So let's begin. Let's go ahead and find an image that we are going to paint. So I'm going to go to images.google.com and then I am going to search for beautiful woman pencil drawing. I found one that I liked ahead of time. And then if I come over to this filter, I'm going to go to this usage rights and do Creative Commons. And this is free for us to use. Looking at our results, I found one here that I like to work on. So if I just tap and hold and do save image, it'll save it to our library. Now I can come over here to Procreate and then up in the wrench tool, choose insert a photo and then choose our photo. Now we have our photo imported. Now let's talk about colors and brushes. I have a color palette here of 4 different colors, and these color swatches I've included for free in the description, so check those out if you want to do this project. So the first tone we're going to do is like a base skin tone. The second color we're going to do is the form shadow. The third color is the cast shadow, and then the white is the highlights. And as far as brushes, we are going to be using, if you go to painting, there is the flat brush. We're going to be using that for the first 3 colors. And then for the highlights, we're going to be using the technical pen under inking. Let's go ahead and do the base skin tone layer. So I have my image in here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. I have my flat brush under painting. And in the color swatches that I provided, I'm going to go with the first color here, which is the lightest brown. If you want to take a look at it, it's somewhere right up in this area. And I have the opacity set here pretty low, and I have the brush size somewhat, well, on the smaller scale. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this entire skin, and I'm going to do it all in one stroke, because if I do multiple paint strokes, you have multiple colors. Then I'm going to come back and clean it up. So I'm going to take the eraser. I'll use the same brush here, and I'll bring my opacity up and size. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go with the soft airbrush, and I'm going to go in and clean that up around all of the overlapped area. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. I also am going to clean up the eyes and the teeth and anything that's not skin. I can go ahead and hide this layer just to make sure I don't have any artifacts, and I do out here on the perimeter. Alright, now that concludes the base skin tone layer. Now we're going to work on our form shadows. So we're going to create another layer, and this time we're going to choose out the second color, which is right about here. In the color swatches, we're also going to use the flat brush. And what we're going to be working on is the form shadow. That's essentially where the light does not hit. And one thing that you can do that will help you out, there's this app I have called Head Model Studio. And this is not sponsored, and I think there's a free version, but you have to pay like $10 a year to get more advanced features here. And essentially what this app does is helps you visualize where light is hitting and where all the shadows are going to be. So like, for example, I can pretend that the light is up here above and on the left. I can move it around, I can change the intensity, I can move it up and down. So we're going to use this as an example, and you can see that the form shadows are going to be on this side of the face. There's going to be a little bit here in the eye, but the rest of it is over on this side. And we're also going to fill in that form shadow color underneath the cast shadows, which we'll get to the next step. So essentially, let's go ahead and do that on our picture here. So what I'm going to do is same brush. I'm going to do all the cast shadow area and the form shadow, which is basically this side of the face, and I'm going to do all this in one pen stroke, because otherwise you have multiple colors. I'm going to do the lips because those are slightly darker than the skin, and then underneath the chin. where that cash shadow is going to be. So essentially this side of the face is pretty much covered. And now we're going to go ahead and clean it up. Get this part of the eye. We're going to go ahead and clean it up, erase around the areas that are not needed, and I'll go ahead and speed this up and kind of show you what it looks like at the end. All right, now we kind of have the form shadows colored in. I've taken away the areas in which the light will hit. We're going to blend this in a future step, so don't worry about making it look really good. At this point, we just want to capture where the form shadows are going to be. Let's go ahead and hide these two layers, look for any artifacts. Yeah, there's a little bit there, a little bit there. All right. Now let's work on our cast shadows. Back to our head model here. And the cast shadows are essentially what is blocked by an object. So for example, the nose is going to block some right here. You can see how it's darker. Underneath the chin, there's going to be that hat. Yeah, so those are, and then maybe some here right around the eye. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to create a new layer. We're going to choose the third color, which is the darkest. And we're going to do the similar method where we're going to color over those and then clean them up. So I'll go ahead and speed through this process as well. Now we finished up the cast shadow color. As you can see, the darker parts are going to be where the hat is covering the light, the nose, part of the eye, and the chin. And so now we can work on the next step, which will make it look a lot better. Now we're going to start working on blending our shadows. So not all shadows have hard lines. We want to blend them to make them look smoother when they're going around curved objects like the nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this blending smudge tool, and I'm going to use the same flat brush, and I'm going to come back to our form shadow layer. I'm going to turn off the cast shadow layer for now, and I'm going to go ahead and blend around those rounded edges. So for example, around the nose, and I'll kind of mix in this shadow line here. It won't be quite as rough. I'm not going to mess with, for example, where it blends off into the cap. I'm not going to smudge into there, or when it transitions off the side of the face or the hair, or in between the lips. So I'm going to leave those. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, speed this up, and then we'll take a look at it after we finish this step. All right, now I've gone ahead and blended, so you can see I made this transition a little bit smoother on around the nose and around the chin and the cheek. So we can now move on to the next blending. We're going to do the same method, this time with the cast shadow. So we're going to turn on this layer here. We're going to use a smudge tool. By the way, I have the opacity down about 20% so it doesn't smudge as dramatically. And so let's go through the same process of smudging these cast shadows. I'll speed it up and then we'll take a look at it when that's done. All right, I've gone ahead and blended in the cast shadows. I had to clean it up with the eraser a little bit because it blended a little too far, but that's okay. I just erased some of it and did some more blending, and then I was able to mix in or blend that cast shadow with the other skin tones. All right, so now that we've done all of that, we have one more final step. Now we're ready for the last step, which is going to be the highlights. So I'm going to pick the last color here, which is a bright white, and then I'm going to create a new layer, and then I'm going to select the technical pen from the inking. And before we begin, let's go ahead and take a look at our head model here of our highlights. And what we can see is we have one here on the forehead, on the cheek, one here beside the nose. I'm also seeing one right here on the bottom lip, and then one up here in the eye area. So we can go ahead and start doing that. All right, I'm gonna call it good for the highlights. As you can tell, I kind of went back and forth as I did some erasing and smudging and just did a little bit of adjustments back and forth on there. So now that we've done the highlights, let's go ahead and take a look and see how it turned out. Thanks for watching this episode. Hopefully you found something helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, or even comment if you have suggestions on art tutorials that you would like to see. I'm making art videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. See you next time.